So the age-old question for fellow artists. How the heck does one make time for creative endeavors while handling a day job? If you're new here, I'm a corporate girly during the day, so I work on all of my illustrations and comics during my off hours. I love the idea of leaving my mark on the internet by sharing my silly little art projects into the void. And with the demand of the day-to-day job as well as functioning as a human being, like eating and sleeping, it can become quite difficult to juggle everything in the chaos of being an adult. At this period of my life, art is one of those things that I have to make time for since my free time is quite limited these days, so I will break down how I find the time in my schedule. The art created during my off hours doesn't have that financial or contractual pressure for me to absolutely meet the deadline, so I am speaking as someone that enjoys this as a fulfilling hobby. And adding a reminder here that everyone's lifestyle and needs are different, so these tips are mainly what works for me and my lifestyle, and for you to just pick and choose which would work best for yourself. So first I'd like to give the context on why I set my schedule the way it is, and once we'll do that, we'll go over my actual schedule breakdown for a normal week. So first I'd like to sit down, crack open that journal, and write how I should prioritize my time. This helps me get the full overview on where I want to spend my time, and then match it against my shorter term goals. The first thing I do is to list out the things I absolutely need to include in my week. Since I mentioned anything art related is secondary in my life, so these are generally the non-related, non-negotiable items. So obviously the top of my list is my job, which goes from Monday to Friday at 8:30 to 5, and then chores, admin, work, and errands, and then time with my pets, and finally seeing friends and family, and that usually lands on the weekends. The full-time job is obviously a no-brainer since it's literally my livelihood for me to fund my silly little bills and my groceries, so obviously the shoes at the top of the list, and then my entire schedule revolves around the work hours. I do want to point out that I do work from home, so I do not have to dedicate time to commuting or honestly don't spend that much time getting ready. And then next down the list is the part where I have to function as a human, whether that's doing personal admin, related items, and errands like grocery shopping, and picking up food and toys for my animals. With that said, I make sure I spend my time with my animals to make sure they get the attention, exercise, and the stimulation, and all the love and care they need. And finally, seeing friends and family are also a non-negotiable item on my list. Now, I don't participate in every single outing, especially with my energy being drained from the week and selfishly being introverted and wanting a day or two to myself, but being holed up at home and working my day job or my art project all the time is a recipe for cabin fever. As being home all the time could be an introvert's paradise, I do get some kind of crazy if I don't socialize outside of work a couple times a week. Next, I list down my creative endeavors I want to focus on within the next 3 months. It's easy to dedicate a couple of hours in a day to something vague like just draw, but if the drawing time is not intentional or focused, it's easy to get swept away with too many options on how to utilize that time, and then it becomes a recipe for decision paralysis. So having short-term goals helps you decide how to spend the allotted drawing time that you have in your day. So at the time of making this video, my current creative endeavors are managing my YouTube channel, practicing warm-ups, studies, my webtoon or any other webcomic projects, and then my illustration. If you are having a hard time deciding your current short-term creative goals, you can start with what you know isn't a part of your endeavors within the next 3 months. So in my case, I am A, not doing any social media prompts or trend. B, I'm not doing sponsored posts on any social media platform, and not doing commission. By eliminating other ways you can get distracted, this prevents you from biting way more than you can chew. I know for myself, if I were to take on a lot of projects, I would get so much anxiety from looking at my schedule when it should be helping me feel organized for the week. And last but not least, any other non-related hobbies and dedicated free time. So my list is working out / weightlifting, gardening, and then gaming. While I am not a hardcore gym girly, I do make it a habit to weightlift at minimum twice a week. My goal for this isn't be a buff muscle mommy or training for any kind of competition, but there was a period of my life where walking less than a mile would leave me out of breath, and then my back would be in pain from being hunched over my desk or drawing tablet for hours on end. I would also get random sharp pains from other areas of my body. Getting old really sucks, y'all. So this little habit has helped me with using my otherwise not used muscle groups, and it's helped me mentally and confidently too. I'm also able to sleep well because the back pain from sitting all the time isn't keeping me up as well, so it's a win-win. In the same vein of touching grass, I actually really love growing a garden outside. I do have a collection of both indoor plants and a couple of fruits and vegetables that I grow in the backyard. And last on the list is gaming. Now I don't game as often as I did when I was a young buck, so the hours of gaming on the weekends are long gone, but I do like to whip out the Nintendo Switch and escape for an hour or two. So now that we have it all listed out, the non-negotiables, the creative project, and then the extra hobbies, we will now go over how we could throw these onto a weekly schedule. So first up the list is, well, actually sleep, so let's go put that in. Admittedly, I'm not a morning person, so I do sleep in on the weekend, but I make it up by staying up a little later than my old body can handle. I just work better at night for some reason. Then the first thing is adding in the work hours, so like I mentioned before, that is from 8:30 to 5 p.m. There's a lunch break in there, so let's go put that in. For the chores and personal admin work, I try to bolt them to specific times so I'm not getting distracted while in the middle of my other task items. As long as I have a dedicated time slot to do it, I know it will eventually be handled. Again, since I do work from home, I do some of the easier chores like a quick vacuum or throwing the clothes into the laundry during my break, but these are the general time slots for the hard chores time. And then pets. So obviously I feed them twice a day and give them the attention throughout the work hour, but the time I'm allotting on the schedule is specifically for walking my dog, especially since he's a puppy and needs to have a healthy outlet. And of course seeing friends and family. The way I go about this is like an appointment structure. So when a friend wants to hang out, I generally propose Friday nights after work and weekend afternoons for a hangout. Family events also tend to land on weekend afternoons, so they also take up the same time slot. We're gonna go a little out of order here, so we will tackle the other non-related art item. Doing this before putting in the time slot for art helps give an overview on how many hours I truly have to dedicate on art. So first up is working out, which I generally do after dinner. I try to keep these on the weekdays because then I don't have to work around potentially conflicting with a friend or family event. Then I have gardening. Some weeks there's more time needed and some weeks it's a simple plant watering session. So these land on the time slot when there is no friends or family event planned. Alright, so the empty slot is the amount of time I do have to dedicate to art. So first up on the list is my YouTube channel. I actually batch all my script writing and recording on a bi-weekly basis, and that generally takes place on Saturday afternoon. I do write and prepare around 3 scripts throughout the week, and then I pre-record 3 scripts in a single sitting. So that's why I'm not context switching between all the things needed to create a video. So when I slot the time to do YouTube, it's generally for editing, thumbnail art, and drawing out art for a video. To not burn out, I don't stick to a strict upload schedule, but I do try to go for no more than 10 days in between uploading a long form video. The next is warm-ups. It's great to always study different subjects or get into the habit of filling out sketchbook pages, so I dedicate around an hour on a day that I do have time to warm up. And then of course, the time to do my webtoon work. The script is mostly done by the time I'm working on the episodes on a regular basis, so this time only involves the sketching and the drawing aspect of the webcomic production. And here is the final schedule. You can see how I work my creative schedule around my full-time job. The schedule is quite crowded now, but I do hope to be able to lighten the workload once I'm able to delegate parts of the video creation process or hire a helper for my webtoon. With that said, this is still sustainable for me because I'm chipping away at my project at a rather slow pace instead of working on everything at net-breaking speed. I used to try to stack as much work as humanly possible into my drawing time, but it always worked for only 1 to 2 days, and then by the third day, I'm too brain dead and end up not working on anything. Nowadays, I try to do one thing related to art a day, so while I may be making much slower progress on my goals, I'm still able to have the energy to draw the next day, and then so on forth without the lingering feeling of burnout. Workflows and schedules are always subject to change, so don't think that your schedule is final and that you have to be by the book after a couple of months. I mean, that's why I've repeatedly said short-term art goals. I hope this video was helpful to you, and thank you for hearing an old lady ramble. If you want to hear me yap more about art-related topics or just watch me draw, feel free to subscribe so that my future videos and content can meet you again. At this time, YouTube is where I post the most, but I am also active on Blue Sky and Instagram as well. If you're still here, thank you so much for watching this video. I hope to see you in the next one, and wishing y'all an absolutely lovely rest of your day. Bye!